Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for the segment, we have Rosen, assistant director with PredictIt, to discuss what the stock market of politics is pricing when it comes to ticket splitting and what that phenomenon means for elections. Ethan, it's great to see you as always. Welcome back to Trade Talks. Explain to us what ticket splitting is.
Yeah, thank you. So this is a phenomenon that has been around since the dawn of elections, where an individual walks into the voting booth and pulls one party for one election, another party for a different election that's on the ballot. Now, studies have shown that, and I mean, you could see this with your own eyes, that ticket splitting has declined dramatically in recent years, particularly in the last 10 to 20 years. That said, though, predicted traders are looking at various races. I think we're going to talk about Pennsylvania and Georgia today, but we're seeing this in Arizona, Kansas, Ohio is a big one, where voters are just rejecting disproportionately or embracing candidates of different parties for different roles.
All right, well, I've got Georgia on my mind. Let's start there.
Yeah, so in Georgia, this is really interesting because there are two big statewide races. There's the gubernatorial race where Brian Kemp is going against Stacey Abrams, and there's the Senate race where Raphael Warnock is going against Herschel Walker. In both of these cases, I would just keep in mind that there are complex causes for this, but predicted traders, as you can see, are pretty comfortable, about 85%, with Brian Kemp's reelection odds. On the Senate side, they have this is our closest Senate race right now, at being almost exactly 50-50. Warnock may be slightly favored. A big reason for this, I got to tell you, first of all, there are problems with Stacey Abrams. There are problems with Herschel Walker. You can't dispute that. But in the primaries in May, Donald Trump, former president, famously intervened to try and knock out Brian Kemp and a host of other candidates who refused to go along with his attempt to overturn the 2020 election result in Georgia. Brian Kemp refused to go along with that. It made him look more reasonable to swing voters by comparison. Herschel Walker has, said things to the effect that he might have gone along with it. Swing voters are less on board with that. So even though Brian Kemp is ultra conservative by his own account, his rejection of that particular form of Trumpism has made him more appealing.
So let's move along to Pennsylvania, because we're seeing some of the same scenario play out there with the gubernatorial and Senate races.
Yeah, almost with the parties reversed, though. In Pennsylvania, in the gubernatorial race, the Democrat, Josh Shapiro, has a significant lead, again, about 80-20, over the Republican Doug Mastriano, while at the same time in the Senate race, Democrat John Fetterman is only narrowly favored against Dr. Oz. Now, again, some of this comes from candidate quality problems. Doug Mastriano is considered to be ultimately not a very good candidate, but there are some observers who think that he actually has set kind of an anchor where his extreme views on things like January 6th and abortion actually make Dr. Oz look reasonable by comparison. So you have swing voters who might go in and say, well, I can't do Mastriano, but at least Oz isn't Doug Mastriano, so I'll vote for him.
Like, that's quite the platform. Which one is not as bad, which I guess does not help us out as constituents. But let's move along to Brazil, because it's always interesting with Brazilian elections.
Yeah, so first round of the election was held last night. The polls did predict that incumbent President Bolsonaro and former President Lula would be first and second, although not in that order. The polling, though, missed Bolsonaro by a significant extent. Polling had him losing by about 10-15 points, ending up in the mid-30s. Instead, he lost by about 4 points, ended up in the low 40s. So as we move towards the second round, which is going to be held on October 30th, I think this is going to be an interesting one to watch. He has a lot of time to make up ground. Again, he only lost by 4 points in that first round. This could end up being, I think, closer than predicted traders are currently pricing it in, but predicted traders still think that Lula has a big advantage.
All right, Ethan, appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq.
Thank you.